Hi. What's wrong? Snarf? Can I sit down? My cat is acting crazy, and yeah, I don't know if you're gonna hear it. She's clawing around all up under the table. Happy with Motor City Nerds, and I just want to talk about some stuff that I love. So let's talk about Game of Thrones, and I'm gonna tell you guys why Tywin Lannister is my favorite character. Hey, let's not say favorite character. He is one of my favorite characters. He's definitely in my top like 2 or 3, but I think he's the most romantic character in the entire series, and nobody recognizes it. Snarf, stop. Snarf, whatever you're doing. Snarf, please. I don't know if you guys can tell, but that's my Lannister blanket up back there. It's fucking sweet. It's my Cersei painting. Yeah, no, I fucking love Tywin Lannister. His backstory, because it's really interesting, because he grew up with the Mad King. They were like growing up together and best friends and all this shit, and then the Mad King, I think on top of being a Targaryen, was already kind of losing it. I think he had other shit going on, but so they grew up together and they were really super tight. And then when the Mad King Aerys became king, he named his buddy Tywin Lannister as Hand of the King. Well, prior to that, Tywin's dad kind of fucked up the entire house. Like, he was like a laughingstock, and everybody just thought he was a joke. And then after Tywin's mom died, okay, this is why Cersei's walk of shame ties in, okay? And this is what I mean about George R. R. Martin just repeating himself. And it's fine as long as you just do it in a good way. And sometimes he does it in a good way, sometimes it's not so good. But what happened was Tywin's mom passes away. So Tywin's dad was given the nickname the Toothless Lion because he was just a bitch-made motherfucker. And Tywin does have a sister. I think he has a couple brothers, and one like disappears or something, and then he has Kevin, but he's still the oldest, and he has a sister in the book, and it's really interesting because she's like, I always knew I could count on Tywin. I knew he would never let anything happen to me, yada yada yada, and I really like that part in the books. His dad was making their house a laughingstock, and this is why it ties in with Cersei's walk of shame, is because as soon as Tywin's dad died, Tydos, his mom had already passed before his dad, and his dad was banging a whore and was letting her wear their mom's jewelry, their mom's gowns, all this shit. So the first thing he did was strip her down and make her walk naked through the streets of Lannisport. And it's not funny, but Tywin's just a bad motherfucker. And then and mind you, he was 19 years old when he did all of this, okay? So he grew up with the Mad King, and then he had shit to handle at home. 19, like I said, he's 19, and that's when the Reigns of Castamere happens. And House Rayne was starting to rival House Lannister. They were very similar. Their sigil was just reversed. That's why the lyrics are a coat of gold or a coat of red. A lion still has claws. House Rayne started wearing jewelry bigger than what the Lannister mom wore, and it started getting all uppity and all this shit, and that was the first, after the whore thing, that was the first thing Tywin went and did at 19, was like, get the fucking army together, we're gonna go fuck these motherfuckers up. And what he did to House Rayne was, they tried to step to him, they tried to step to his wealth, and he fucking locked them into where their shit was, and it was like cavernous, and they have all the gold mining shit going on in the west and all this stuff, so he locks them in, the whole house, and everybody, and drowns them. Uses the levees in the water system to drown them and murder them all. And that's what the song The Reigns of Castamere is about House Rayne and how he completely fucking destroyed it. He said he was 19 years old. He marries his first cousin, Joanna Lannister. That's why we'll get into what I think's gonna happen in the ending of the books, because I think me and Thar... Anyway, we'll get into that, but that way they're still all Lannisters and this and that, because... Well, we'll talk about it in this, I'll get to it. Remember that him and the Mad King are BFFs. Like, they... Not BFFs, but they grew up together, they know each other very well. Like, Tywin knew he was gonna be Hand of the King, all this shit. Well, Tywin was very ambitious, too. That's a whole thing. Tyrion kills Joanna Lannister. Now, Flower, my best friend, is the one who said this, and she was like, I don't think Tywin can have kids. She thinks that Tywin is barren, and that this guy that's so consumed with family can't actually have a family. I know there are tons of Targaryen theories about the Lannister kids, but normally it's either Tyrion is one, and I kind of think that for sure, but then she was like, what if the twins are too? Oh yeah, and that would totally make sense. It's just a theory. But anyway, let's get back to this. The only thing that ever made Lord Tywin happy was his wife, and they said when she died, he died, and it was the only thing. That was the only thing that made him smile. It was the only thing that made him happy was his wife. Now, when the Mad King started losing his shit even more than he already was, and started figuring things out, and Tywin was Hand, rumors started going around that the Mad King was fooling around with Tywin's fucking wife. Obviously, Tywin don't like that shit. So while he's Hand of the King, there's all these rumors going around, well, not rumors, but people like sayings that people have where it's like Tywin's the real power in Westeros, and he really was, and all this stuff, and he was, it didn't matter about King Aerys, but King Aerys is already losing his shit, so on top of it, it's becoming a problem, so Tywin not only thinks you're being weird with his wife, but he also, because that was the one thing that the Mad King knew would piss Tywin off, because he just knew that, and everybody knew it. Like I said, it's like a known fact throughout Westeros. So people are saying all this stuff about Tywin is actually more powerful than the Mad King. He knows that the Mad King is getting pissed off. He thinks some shit is going on with his wife. So he's like, fuck this shit, I'm going back to Casterly Rock. And he's just chilling at Casterly Rock doing all his duties from there because he's like, I'm not fucking safe in the capital. Tywin's not stupid. He's going back and forth between the capital and Casterly Rock because, one, he thinks the Mad King is touching his wife inappropriately and doing weird shit. And he also doesn't feel safe in the capital. And I think he knows that the Mad King is kind of losing it and whatever. But he thought, my friend will totally be down for this betrothal of Rhaegar to Cersei. Well, that big party happens, and in front of everybody, the Mad King says no and embarrasses Tywin. This is a big deal because he learned that after you get laughed at, you don't come back from that because of what his dad did. Everybody laughed at his dad. Everybody thought he was a joke, and so Tywin don't like that shit. And that's where we get the first, like, real crack. And, well, I would say the wife is, but that was never, like, fully established. And I'm assuming Joanna Lannister would have been the type of woman to be like, I know I cannot tell my husband this shit because he will fucking go berserko and it's going to cause chaos. Also, the same event where we get rumors that the Mad King forced himself onto Joanna Lannister, which is why people think Tyrion is a Targaryen, and that also would add to Tywin really thinks that's not his kid. He thinks that is the Mad King's kid, and it killed the one thing he loved. Not only were you forcing yourself on her, but you killed her, essentially. Because there's a whole bunch of history about the Targaryens having stunted children and fucked up kids, and it's because of all the crazy blood stuff and everything like that, and it was very common for them to have stillbirths, like, it was a thing. So it all kind of adds up. And we'll go into detail about crazy theories at a different time, but I just want to talk about Tywin. Well, then we have Robert's Rebellion happen, and that's when Mad King's like, oh yeah, well, he also fucking signs Jaime to the fucking Kingsguard on fucking purpose. He was the youngest one, he was the best, and all this shit, but the show kind of makes it seem more like he did that just for Cersei, and that's not true. The Mad King did that so that the only heir left to Tywin was Tyrion, and he was like, no, I just took away your oldest son, I denied your fucking daughter, fuck you, and it's like, you've been my friend my whole life, what the fuck? And I think you're raping my wife. To Robert's Rebellion, okay? Tywin didn't enter the battle until the very end, and it was because when they got there, that's why Jaime was on the Kingsguard already, and that's why he could kill the Mad King before he could blow up the city and all this shit, but Tywin shows up, and he's like, fucking thank God, my fucking friend is here. And Maester Pycelle is like, yeah, let him in, he's gonna help us, but what does Tywin do? He sacks King's Landing, his son kills the Mad King, and he helps Robert take the throne. I think that was completely because of Joanna. Like, how fucking, I mean, it's brutal, but Robert Baratheon claims to do it for the same things, but Rhaegar goes to war over love, and it's like, no, Tywin fucking destroyed a dynasty officially, like, destroyed a fucking dynasty officially for touching his wife. That's one of the reasons I love Tywin. I do love cunning characters, I do love ruthless characters, but they gotta be, like, smart, and Tywin has some of the best lines in the entire series of the show and the books, and he's just the fucking best, and Charles Dance is so fucking good as him. Any man who has to say he is the king is no king. Like, I use that all the time. I love when he says, I don't underestimate you because you're a woman. I underestimate you because you're not as smart as you think you are. Like, Tywin ain't prejudiced. He ain't stupid. He knows that. Same thing with Logan Roy, like we talked about on the Succession videos. He does not underestimate Olenna Tyrell. He knows that she is not a stupid woman. He knows that she is formidable. He's not dumb. Like, he knows not to underestimate women and shit. He knows not to underestimate Dorne. He realizes I fucked up with that, and this is becoming a problem, so he tries, but that don't work out. We will get to the Martells. So that's what I mean. This is like your childhood friend showing up and you're crazy and losing it and all this other shit and you think he's there to save you and really he's there to fucking take over your city because you touched his wife, motherfucker. I don't give a fuck about none of the other shit. You came for my wife, the one thing that made me happy, and I think your little bastard killed her and I'm here to sack your city. And I'm going to put my daughter on the throne either way through Robert Baratheon. And I've always said this, like, even before I realized like Tywin was actually my favorite character, I think one of the most cold-blooded, ruthless things in this entire show is that there's no words. It's one of the episodes where they show something before the credits roll, before we get the opening song, and it's when he's fucking melting down. I think it's called The Two Swords, right? Excuse me. And he's melting down Ned Stark's sword to make their Valyrian swords, and it's like, that is the most ruthless, cold-blooded fucking thing where it's just like, fuck another house, fuck you, I do what I want, but with no words, just facial expressions and music and images, and it's like, oh my god, it's like we're destroying a family, and I don't give a shit. And in the book, and I mean, it is a big deal in the show too, but in the book, colors, like, there are very few people that can rework Valyrian steel in the world of Westeros, and Tywin finds them and pays them top dollar to come and do this, but they can't get certain colors out of it. Like, it stays like a crimson-y color, but still has the dark grayish of the Valyrian steel, and it's like, it's supposed to be like, there's magic involved and shit, so it's like, it's kind of rejecting it in a way, and it's very cool, but that's all in the book. But that opening scene in the show is one of the best done scenes, and I think probably the best opening. It's right after we get Ned's death and shit, and it's fucking great. It's so well done. It gives you everything you need to know without saying a word. I love it. Scenes with Arya, those are fucking great, and I'm glad that they had more of him with Arya in the show than she did with Roose Bolton in the book, and I love the Leech Lord. We will get to the Leech Lord. I don't condone everything Tywin does. I don't like everything Tywin does, but I fucking love him as a character. All about his family surviving. He's all about his house surviving. He brought his house up from ruin and rebuilt it. Like, I respect that, and that's probably why I like Logan Roy in Succession. With Cersei is, and I mean, we still have 2 books to get through, but like, one thing I really liked about the show doing things like this was, if you notice, Tywin's pattern on his doublet and stuff, after he passes away, Cersei starts having those patterns in her dress, and it's because she thinks she's Tywin, she thinks she's as smart as her dad was, and she's not. She would have got more of Jaime fighting, but we're not talking about House Lannister, we're talking about fucking Tywin. Yeah, he does fucked up shit, but it's like Shae would have fucked Tyrion over either way. Like, I think in the book, she gets bribed by Cersei, and she's paid off, and so she's like, hell yeah, I'll fucking go to the trial and do this shit. Another great line is when Olenna Tyrell at the wedding says, it might be, whatever, Olenna Tyrell says it to him, when it's a man that holds up to his reputation, it's like, oh shit, like Tywin's, what, in his 60s? Like, he's been ruling since he was 19, and he's fucking running shit, and when he sends Joffrey to bed, it is great. When he walks up the stairs to the Iron Throne above Joffrey and says, I am counseling you right now. Like, those scenes are so great. You're a fool if you think that that's the most powerful man in Westeros. Like, I appreciate a character who runs shit and knows it, but doesn't have the fucking full title. Like, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it by reputation. Everybody just knows it. Like, maybe none of the kids are his in the books. Like I said, he's just a romantic character if you really think about it. Like, this whole fucking thing, this whole sacking the city, all came from you fucked with my wife. The one thing I loved. You fucking piece of shit, and you were my friend. And so yeah, I'm gonna fucking ruin you. And no, that is not a good way to be, but I fucking love it. He's just cold-blooded in the book. He's a cold-blooded motherfucker, but it's like, I'm going to make sure my family survives. The kicker with how I think the ending will go, and like I said, we'll save that for a bigger video, but that way, if they are the Mad King's kids, all of them, or Tyrion, or the twins, whatever, their mom is still a Lannister, so technically the Lannisters would still be in the fold. And like, in the show, it's done perfectly when he dies, and he's such a formidable character, and Charles Dance does it so well, and I love him in the books. He's, like I said, he's probably, if I'm going books, there's way more characters, so he's definitely in my top 3, but in the show, he might be my favorite character in the entire show. And I know not a lot of people agree with that, but it's like, yeah, once you know, like, the backstory of him and how his dad made them a joke, and he was like, man, I gotta fix this shit, and he fucking did, and then the Mad King, his friend, kept fucking him over. Like I said, he was like, oh, watch me take your heir. Oh, I'm not gonna let my son marry your daughter. Oh, I'm gonna embarrass you in front of everybody. And Tywin was like, fuck that shit. And then, like I said, the Mad King was already losing his shit, and then Jaime kills him. God, that's fucking great. And no, we'll save that. We will save that. But yeah, no, I feel like Tywin, I mean, I know he's a bad guy. And I know a lot of people don't like him, but everybody is always like, why do you like Tywin? And I'm like, because he's the most romantic character in the entire series. I think I'm just going to do a bunch of videos about the characters I love a lot that people do not understand why, like Robert Baratheon, Tywin Lannister, Roose Bolton. Characters I like in every house, and you know what I mean? But there are some obscure ones, and people are like, Abby, have you lost your mind? Like Roose Bolton. But I will argue for Roose Bolton all day. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about Tywin's backstory, the fucking reigns of Castamere, his dad being a fool, him killing for love, him sacking a city and officially destroying a dynasty, laying the dead kids at the fucking foot of the goddamn Iron Throne, because he's like, you fucked with my wife, dude, don't do that. That's the one thing I love. I fuck my kids, I love my wife, and it's like, that's fucked up, but I love Tywin because of it, and it's an awesome backstory. It's explicitly said, but it's It's implied, like, that it's like, okay, well, you did this, and then you embarrassed me, and then you did this, and then you kept fucking with my wife, and then I tried to get away from you, and you wouldn't let me get away, and then when I showed up, I sacked your fucking city, bitch. Yeah, I'm gonna do a bunch of these little videos talking about characters I love and nobody understands why. So I'm Abby with Motor City Nerds. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Oh my god, and me and Mom loved Hawkeye. We're about to fucking record about that. But yeah, leave comments. That helps a lot. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do Bruce Bolton next. No, we'll do Bruce Bolton in a little while because I'm gonna wanna. The Leech Lord is one of my favesies. Not his son, Roose.